If you're a founder, you know that fundraising is a big part of the job. What you might not know is that Carta is there to help. Carta's new fundraising suite provides startups of all stages the best tools and support to easily issue safes, accurately forecast dilution, and quickly close funding rounds. Save time, money, and make your next round your best yet. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise. Welcome to Inc. for Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. I'm Alexa, a serial entrepreneur myself and founder and managing partner of Inspired Capital, a venture firm that backs fearless founders who are solving some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. Now in our 6th season, we sit down each week with one of the best founders on the planet to hear their story of guts, inspiration, and drive. Let's dive right in. Hi, everybody. I'm Alexa Von Tobel. I'm your host. And this week, I'm excited for you to meet Ethan Brown, the founder, president, and CEO of Beyond Meat, a company dedicated to building meat directly from plants. Ethan founded Beyond Meat in 2009, and in 2019, it became the first plant-based meat company to go public, launching on the NASDAQ with a market cap of approximately $1.5 billion. Its flagship product is the Beyond Burger, which is designed to look, cook, and taste like a traditional beef burger. The company has since expanded to selling a range of other plant-based meat products available at 130,000 plus retailers in 65 countries. Prior to Beyond Meat, Ethan worked at Ballard Power Systems, a hydrogen fuel cell company, where he joined as an entry-level manager and quickly advanced to report directly to the CEO before leaving to start Beyond Meat. Ethan also founded and launched a Center for Fuel Reformation, holding several prominent industry roles, including vice chairman of the board at the National Hydrogen Association and Secretary of the United States Fuel Cell Council. Ethan is a fellow Henry Crown Fellow at the Aspen Institute, and his work has earned accolades such as Inc.'s Best Led Companies in 2021, as well as the United Nations' highest environmental award, Champion of the Earth, in 2018. Ethan received an MBA from Columbia University, a master's in public policy with a focus on the environment from University of Maryland, and a BA in history and government from Connecticut College. And with that, let's welcome Ethan. Ethan, first of all, I'm such a fan. I have had the product countless times. I'm so excited to have you on today, especially just given how much we're all thinking about climate. Let's start from the beginning. What is Beyond Meat in your own words?
Well, first, it's terrific to be on the podcast, and I'm also an admirer of yours and really appreciate the opportunity to talk today. For me, Beyond Meat has always been the same thing, which is a company that builds meat directly from plants, and we're doing that for 4 reasons. The fundamental motivation behind the business is around solving for human health, for climate, for natural resource conservation, and animal welfare. And I had never seen anything in my career before. I've been working in the fuel cell sector and electric drive sector where you could focus on one thing and simultaneously impact 4 really important global issues. That was, to me, just fascinating and remains fascinating today.
I've never heard it said that way, and I love it. And that really speaks to me, which is to be able to do one thing that simultaneously is doing 4 major global issues. What an incredible focused productivity mission orientation. Let's go back to the early days in 2009. I always love to hear, Ethan, the aha moment. What was the moment where all of a sudden you were like, I've got to go do this with all my time, all my might, all my energy? What caused that?
Right. Well, I often run across folks like you who have been so successful early in their career and so focused on the outcome they're trying to pursue. And for me, I am always envious of that because it took me a while to get to the point where I was able to embark on this. When I was in my 20s, I really thought a lot about why isn't there a plant-based McDonald's? Like that was a big focus for me, but I was in the energy sector and I had been educated to work on energy issues and it was really my professional focus. But I kept coming back to this question because I knew something about agriculture for a reason to get into later. And I really wanted to explore it, but I didn't see an avenue. I'm not a chef. I didn't know much about food. I ate it, of course, but other than that, and over time, I just began to realize that it was such a calling for me to try to address this problem that if I didn't do it, it would be a major point of dissatisfaction for me as I looked back on my life. I believe there are a bunch of different moments over time, but one that is, as I've been asked this question, strikes me as maybe important. I was standing in line on I-95 in one of these rest stops or whatever on the Jersey Turnpike. And I was with my children who were extremely young at the time, like babies, basically. And we were in line at a restaurant and the choices were just dismal. and they were all animal protein based. They were not healthy. And I knew the animal at that point. I had grown up around farm animals. I had it at the time, I had farm animals, and I knew them. And I said, if this goes on and I don't do anything about it, I'm not going to be okay. And so I said, at that moment, I said, I've got to change what I'm doing in my career and go do something different. And it took me a while to do that after that point, but that was really the aha moment.
I love that so much. For those that are listening, we all have a sense of what the plant based meat industry is, right? All of us kind of a sense. Can we actually just talk about what are the ingredients in these products? And also, what is the science that makes these products possible and so delicious?
Thanks very much for the question because it really is. It's a beautiful process how Beyond Meat is built, and it comes from some really neat ingredients. And so I do love talking about it. So I'll start at the farm level. And, I was recently with one of our farmers in the northern part of the state of Montana. And this particular farm grows red lentils that are sold to a supplier that we use. And I want to emphasize something really great about legumes in general is that they are a nitrogen fixing crop. So what that means is there's a nodule on the root of the plant that is taking nitrogen from the air and they're converting that nitrogen into the structure that builds the plant. So it goes into ammonia and then into amino acids and proteins and other such things. And the thing to remember is that when that plant dies, it's releasing all of that nitrogen into the soil. So it's fertilizing the soil just by the process of existing. Now, you juxtapose that with feedstock for livestock, things like corn and wheat. Those are more extractive. Those are taking nutrients from the soil. So they're using nitrogen, et cetera, and those need to be replenished. And they're often replenished in industrial agriculture with synthetic fertilizer. So at the onset, there's really something good going on as we're growing the feedstocks for our particular products. And so I'll look at the Beyond Burger to explain further. We've got the red lentil proteins, we've got brown rice protein, we've got yellow pea protein, and we have fava bean protein. So returning to the red lentils, the next step in the process is that red lentil is harvested and milled. And by milled, it's ground up into flour. And then that flour is put into an air chamber. And because the densities of starch and protein present differently, they easily separate under this pressure. And so we take the protein and then we take that protein and put it through heating, cooling, and pressure that restructures it into a form that is muscle-like to the human sensory system. That's the process. From there, we mix in heart-healthy avocado oil. We put in pomegranate juice. We put in beet juice. We put in some potato starch and then we mix in natural flavors. We bind all this together with a binder that's made from cellulose, and that is the Beyond Burger or Beyond Beef. And what I love so much about that is listen to how clean that process is and how simple it actually is at the end of the day.
I want to discuss a little bit of the early go to market. I remember being a consumer and seeing these products and this sort of like, wow, what is that? Huh, this is so interesting. How did you think about making these products tenable to consumers, knowable by consumers? And then fast forward a bit, you ended up with major partners, Panda Express in the United States, McDonald's across Europe. I mean, huge, huge, huge brands brought these into their stores, which obviously was a huge part of your mission and your why. But let's start with the go to market. How did you make these make sense to people?
For me, I really wanted to have the consumer share in the journey of thinking about this as meat and thinking about it as if you're going to go to the trouble of reconstructing and building meat, let's make it healthier, right? And so things like swapping out the oil systems, making sure that there's no GMOs or anything of that nature, trying to create a very, very healthy product from the beginning was something that we wanted to do. I kept having this image in my mind, even as I was working on the first package, I remember this, of the Vitruvian Man, the Da Vinci. It's just this beautiful human form. And I kept thinking about that because it was also in a circle, which to me signified the earth. And I always felt like, if we can create a product that's really great for the human body and really great for the earth, that would be a strong contribution to global society. And so we focused on those dual objectives of let's make this good for the body, let's make it good for the earth. And I wanted to convey that this could actually be something that helped the human body perform versus in any way be a deficit. And, there's a long history of prejudice against plant protein because people think it's incomplete and they have a poor scientific understanding of it. There's nothing further from the truth. The products that we build are actually preferred by many athletes because they are clean fuel for the body. So I wanted to tee into that specific perspective. And so I started to use athletes to market. And I called a guy named Jeff Manning. He and I have since become very good friends. And he was the leader on the California Milk Board that hired the agency and then instructed them and managed the Got Milk campaign. And Milk Does a Body Good and then into Got Milk campaign. And I said, Jeff, can you do that for me? I said, I want people to understand that this product is going to really help them flourish. So we went out and got all these athletes, and Sports Illustrated ran this piece on it. Since then, we've run into some headwinds on that. And, the media industry's come after us and all these other things. But the fundamental truth is it's just clean fuel for your body, and many athletes continue to use it.
I love that. I'm really proud of some of the work you've done recently. You've been working with the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, among others, to develop Beyond for the latest generation of products. Can we just talk about some of the changes you've made to make these products healthier? And I'll just say, somebody sitting here, fellow entrepreneur, mother of 3 kids, what we eat is so fundamental to our health. Talk a little bit about the journey you've been on and the evolutions that you've made that we all should know about.
Thank you. And I applaud you also for thinking about this as a mom. I think about it the same way. And one of the metaphors that I think about as a parent is, if you walk in a forest, sometimes you'll see a small seedling growing from a trunk or from a tree that has fallen. And sometimes it's actually the genetic material of the tree that has fallen. And so it's sort of like the parent nurturing that child even after their life has expired. And I think about, as parents, what can we do to our children and for our children to put them on the right path from a health perspective? And that really is about keeping their arteries clean. Even at a young age, you see more and more American children are having unusual cholesterol measurements. And so you're seeing early that these habits from these standard American diets are creating issues for our children. And of course, when you looked at the Korean War victims and other soldiers that were killed at 20, they did these studies a long time ago, where even back then you were seeing the beginnings of heart disease in a very serious way. So we have to make sure we get our children on the right path for a healthful and productive life. And so my mission and our mission here is to make the products healthier and healthier generation after generation of product. And so if you look at the first set of products that we did, we ran these terrific studies with Stanford School of Medicine. They did them on our behalf. We gave them a 5-year unrestricted grant to do work. We couldn't control the outcome. And of course, they're not going to leverage their reputation for us. So they did the studies that we want to do them, and we had to accept the results. But they were really good. We had consumers, statistically significant numbers, consume animal protein twice a day for 8 weeks, and then a washout period, and then they consume Beyond Meat twice a day for 8 weeks, went back to animal protein for the last 8 weeks of the study. And just during that 8-week period when they consumed Beyond Meat, cholesterol levels dropped clinically and statistically significant levels, as did TMAO, which is a compound in the gut associated with heart disease. So even with the first iteration of the Beyond Burger, we saw really substantial gains from a health perspective just over 8 weeks, but we want to make it better. So we worked with doctors there. We worked with doctors in various clinics in the United States, nutritionists, dietitians, and began to develop what we call Beyond 4, which we swapped out the fat system to put in avocado oil. So we dropped the saturated fat levels further. And of course, avocado oil is considered a heart healthy oil. And so now it's just 2 grams of saturated fat compared to 8 grams in animal protein. And of course, the nature of that fat is better for the human body. Other things changed. We added red lentils, brown rice proteins, fava bean protein, along with yellow pea protein, brought down sodium levels, et cetera. So just keep making the products healthier and healthier. And that is the mission for Beyond Meat. Is we're not telling people not to consume meat, but we believe, and I'm certain of this, that the future of protein is a plant-based future. We're not going to continue to run plant material to an animal much longer. I don't know if it happens in my lifetime, but you will see a more complete transition to plant-based meat and plant-based protein.
I love that. And I have no doubt that the journey you're on is to constantly keep making the product better.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the future. So in 2023, the size of the global meat market was $1.7 trillion.
Correct.
And it is expected to grow to $2.6 trillion just within a decade. Can we talk a little bit about what is the future of food? There's going to be many more billion people on this planet. We have so many challenges around the future of food. And clearly, as a true thought leader on this massively critical category for the world, tell us a little bit about what you see and what your predictions are about the category.
I think I start with my own context, and that's the United States and the American consumer. But we have facilities in Europe and in China as well. So maybe add a little bit of that. But If the American diet, right, we all know this, it gives you a tremendous chance at having the following things: cognitive decline, whether it's dementia, getting a statin for cholesterol, getting a stint later in life, potentially having erectile dysfunction issues. It runs the gamut. And that really has to do with the high consumption of animal protein, salts, and sugars, and then the sedentary lifestyle. We know very much that this diet is not working for us. We have to change it. And so when we think about the $1.7 trillion market, we've got to convert that market into materials that help the human body. And that's what we're after. And that's why the American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, Good Housekeeping, Clean Label Project, that's why they're behind what we're doing, because we all see this need to change that. Now, from an environmental perspective, this is where the 1 for 4 comes into play. It's beautiful. Everybody is wringing their hands about climate, as they should be. It's a very, very dangerous situation that we're in. We are absolutely on the brink. And I went to school for this many, many years ago. My master's thesis and all this was in climate. And so it's just getting worse. We have to do something, right? And right in front of our noses is a solution. And this is not my work. This is Matthew Hayek, who's at NYU, but he did an analysis with colleagues that showed that if we were to take, first of all, stop with the animal protein consumption, bring down the livestock levels, right? When you do that, you take an enormous amount of methane out of the cycle. And methane is important to take out because it's a very potent greenhouse gas, but it also leaves the atmosphere more quickly. So it allows us to take that important greenhouse gas out, cool down the atmosphere as we're doing it, and then buy time to deal with carbon. But the other thing that happens is livestock takes about 30% of global lands up right now. If you were to allow that to rewild, you could take carbon out of the atmosphere at a tremendous rate. So between those two measures, taking methane down through the reduction of livestock and then allowing that land to rewild, to go back to nature, you can essentially meet the requirements that UN has for keeping the climate below 1.5 degrees Celsius increase. So it's here, it's present today. It doesn't take a technological savior. We just have to do it. And politically, it's not feasible to do that level of reduction. There's too many incumbent interests. There's too much money in politics. But we can do it at a certain level and get certain benefits from it. And we should. And so as a consumer, I think we all have an obligation as we make that choice 3 times a day. Let's make a different choice.
I love that so much. And we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Alexa here. Not only do I get the opportunity to speak with all types of founders on the Inc. Founders Project podcast, I'm also a founder myself. I believe that when the world zigs, you have to zag. So in 2008, when the entire world was in free fall during the global financial crisis, I decided to drop out of business school to solve a problem I couldn't get out of my head. LearnVest was born, and I set out on my fundraising journey to build the first digital financial manager accessible to the masses. I can't stress enough how vital fundraising is to a startup and how many no's I had to endure. Carta knows this and had founders in mind when they created their fundraising suite, providing tools and support to take the friction out of fundraising and saving founders time and money, allowing founders to focus on their goals, not the admin work needed to close a round. From simply issuing safes to quickly receiving funds, Carta's fundraising suite helps their cap table customers raise a better fundraising round. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise. Ethan, I want to transition to you. You grew up in DC, as you already mentioned. You grew up seeing a farm, livestock was very present in your childhood. I always like to ask people that have done something as successfully as you have, if you have to draw a straight line from something that happened in your childhood, a memory, something your parents did, to today that you think really set you up for being able to have the ability to be a founder, changing a category, which is miserably hard. What's the childhood thing that you think set you up for success for today?
Oh, thank you very much for asking that. One is what you alluded to. My dad is a professor, and at the time, he was at the University of Maryland. And he hated the city, didn't want to be in the city. And so between him and my mom, the compromise was that we were going to get a farm outside the city and spend weekends there and things like that, summertime and everything. And so I had an unusual childhood where I was in DC and had the sort of urban lifestyle, and then I would be pulled out and go to our farm and have a very different lifestyle in Appalachia. And I loved it. And I gained a real appreciation for nature and for animals. And also just thinking differently about things. I mean, I would have questions about, like, why does our dog sleep in my bed, but these animals don't? And but I was just practical reasons. But why were they treated differently? I think that shaped my thinking a lot, that I met very early members of our food system and began to think differently about them as a child. I think the second is just adversity. You go through adversity in life, and I always look for candidates that have been through that because it's resilience that matters, particularly when you're going against something. I love great moments of history. I'm reading a terrific book on Cortez, who was obviously a very deplorable guy, but just to read about what it took to accomplish, whether it was Cortez or whether I also read a lot about the natives here in the US, what they went through to fight, and these leaders, all the different trials and tribulations. That's what makes a great leader. And a friend of mine once said, you can tell a leader by the arrows in his back. And if you grew up having some adversity, you can handle that better. So I think those are my two answers.
I love that so much. You can tell a leader by the arrows in his back. I want to talk about your stamina. You are 15 plus years in. And, I sort of have this belief in life, Ethan, that to do anything well, you have to put in at least a decade. Like anything under a decade, unless you get really lucky, you're probably not really moving the mark on something. You're 15 years in. And as I said, in so many ways, just getting started at what's possible. Talk about your persistence.
I appreciate that too. I mean, there's a great, I mean, I don't take this literally, but there's a terrific quote by Springsteen. It's sometimes I can't tell the difference between my courage and my desperation. You always got to be brave. Like when you're asking what my favorite quotes are, one of them is from Chronicles: "Be brave and courageous to do the work." And that really does define how I approach life. Like it just doesn't matter. Like you get up and you do the work, and you do the work, and if you do the work enough, great things happen. And that's my belief system. And so I am very strongly feel that the harder things get, the more you dig in, the more you focus. And I think true things become truer as you go on as a leader. The idea that you have to listen to the consumer, it just becomes truer, it becomes more obvious. The idea that people are everything becomes truer, becomes more obvious. The idea that, you've got to make moments you think the decision is the right decision to make, really just spend a couple of days thinking about that. You've got to make that decision, right? All those things become truer as you get older and more mature as a leader. They don't become more complex, they become easier.
I love that. Be brave and courageous and do the work.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, Ethan. As a founder, we have so many things that we juggle: stress, conflicting goals at the same time, giving guidance when you don't totally know many variables. And obviously, the stress is just real and it's profound. And I even can tell from this, you're an outdoors person, you love to exercise. What are your one or two tips that you can pay it forward to everybody who has big ambitions and wants to accomplish something on how you manage the stress?
I appreciate that. I think it begins with the body for sure. You have to take care of it, and I'm religious about that. I don't go to work unless I've exercised. I take a break at 2 in the afternoon and exercise for half an hour, and then go back to work. And it's incredible how much more productive you are. So it goes to the evening. And so that's really important to me, surrounding yourself with really supportive people, which I have. And that's incredible, including my colleagues, someone right here in the room, and then my family, my wife. And then I also make sure that I have an escape. I was texting with a former colleague who enjoys this part of life as well. And I have horses, and I go down there and get away from it all. And, they don't care what I do. They don't care what some analyst or short seller or journalist is saying about me. They just are happy to see me. And I look in their eyes and I see what I'm fighting for. It's that miracle of life that surrounds us. We've been blessed to be here. Let's try to preserve it. Let's try to sustain it. Let's try to help it. And for me, that just is tapping into a source of energy that is inexhaustible.
I love that. That's really beautiful, Ethan. And I feel like I could take a page from your book and learn to get a second exercise. And that is impressive. But you're right. You're completely right. I'm going to go to the quick fire round. I want the first thing that comes to your mind. What wakes you up every day?
Honestly, I have a pet pig named Wilbur, and he gets up without fail. Like my alarm, I can screw around with, but I can't screw around him. So he gets up at 5 o'clock, and I get up with him.
I'm like that. I've never had that answer before.
Oh, there you go.
That is amazing. What is a quote that you live by? A quote, a mantra, something that is in your head that you just hold as so true?
I have it on my ring, actually, and it's Albert Schweitzer was a guy who won the 1952 Nobel Peace Prize, theologian, doctor, etc. He had a framework for life called reverence for life. And I believe very strongly in that. I believe that's the right approach to life.
In your whole 15 years of Beyond Meat, you have to give me one pinch me moment. What was the pinch me moment where you came home that day from work, said to your wife, wow, this happened? What would it be?
Honestly, I'm a product person. And so it's probably moments where I've watched these brilliant, young, not so young scientists do incredible things. And I had pinch me moments with each new product. And one I just brought home last night, which I can't tell you about yet, but it's incredible even to look at it. And for me, that is the most exciting thing. You look at it and you're like, wait, this, forget all the politics, forget all this stuff. This is the future of protein. This is the future of meat. And that gets me really excited.
That's cool. That just gave me some goosebumps. That's awesome, Ethan. I love that. What is a book that you've read that you really would just urge us all to pick up?
Oh man, there's so many that I think are out there right now that are impactful. I think movies are getting worse, books are getting better. And I think that Wild New World by Dan Flores, who a little crazy. I got so intensely interested in Dan and his work. I went to his house in Arizona and met with him. And he's written tremendous books, Dan Flores. American Serengeti, Wild New World, Coyote America. It's about the European expansion across the United States, the indigenous populations, and others that have to deal with that.
I love that. Last question. What is one thing that you wish you knew before you started? You can pay it forward to everybody.
I guess it's the truth become truer. It is about the people, 100% about the people. It doesn't matter how great your idea is or how passionate you are about it. You got to surround yourself with great people. And when you're not surrounded, make sure you make a change. Don't give up when you're absolutely to try to get them to join you.
I love that. And I deeply agree with you on every level. Everybody out there, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Ethan did not ask me to do this, but I want to urge everybody to rethink their food habits in the interest of the planet. And so if you've not already checked out beyondmeat.com, please do. As you go grocery shopping or get your Instacarts, rethink what you want to bring home and feed yourself and your family. The product is incredible. And Ethan, I just want to say we are rooting for you in every way. And everybody can join us next week for a new episode of For Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. Thank you all so much. Ethan, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't wait to see what you do in these next 10 years.
Thank you so much. You too. You too. Thank you.